In China, in the age of AI, there's no doubt about who is in charge. In an authoritarian state, social stability is the watchword of the government. And artificial intelligence has increased its ability to scan the country for signs of unrest. It's been projected that over 600 million cameras will be deployed by 2020. Here, they may be used to discourage jaywalking, but they also serve to remind people that the state is watching.
And now there is a project called Sharp Eyes, which is putting camera on every major street and corner of every village in China, meaning everywhere, matching with the most advanced artificial intelligence algorithm, which they can actually use this data, real-time data, to pick up a face or pick up an action.
Frequent security expos feature companies like Megvii and its facial recognition technology. They show off cameras with AI that can track cars and identify individuals by face, or just by the way they walk.
The place is just filled with these screens where you can see the computers are actually reading people's faces and trying to digest that data and basically track and identify who each person is. And it's incredible to see so many, because just 2 or 3 years ago, we hardly saw that kind of thing. So a big part of it is government spending. And so the technology has really taken off, and a lot of companies have started to sort of glom onto this idea that this is the future.
China is on its way to building a total surveillance state.
And this is the test lab for the surveillance state. Here in the far northwest of China is the autonomous region of Xinjiang. Of the 25 million people who live here, almost half are a Muslim, Turkic-speaking people called the Uyghurs. In 2009, tensions with local Han Chinese led to protests and then riots in the capital, Urumqi. As the conflict has grown, the authorities have brought in more police and deployed extensive surveillance technology. That data feeds an AI system that the government claims can predict individuals prone to terrorism and detect those in need of re-education in scores of recently built camps. It is a campaign that has alarmed human rights groups.
Chinese authorities are, without any legal basis, arbitrarily detaining up to 1 million Turkic Muslims simply on the basis of their identity. But even outside the facilities in which these people are being held, most of the population there is being subjected to extraordinary levels of high-tech surveillance, such that almost no aspect of life anymore takes place outside the state's line of sight. And so the kinds of behavior that's now being monitored, which language you speak at home, whether you're talking to your relatives in other countries, how often you pray, that information is now being hoovered up and used to decide whether people should be subjected to political re-education in these camps.
There have been reports of torture and deaths in the camps. And for Uyghurs on the outside, Xinjiang has already been described as an open-air prison.
Trying to have a normal life as Uyghur is impossible both inside and outside of China. Just imagine, while you're on your way to work, police subject you to scan your ID, forcing you to lift your chin, while machines take your photo and you wait until you find out if you can go. Imagine police take your phone and run data scan and force you to install compulsory software, allowing your calls and messages to be monitored. Imagine at the
Nuri Turkel, a lawyer and a prominent Uyghur activist, addresses a demonstration in Washington, D.C. Many among the Uyghur diaspora have lost all contact with their families back home. Turkel warns that this dystopian deployment of new technology is a demonstration project for authoritarian regimes around the world.
they have barcodes on somebody's home doors to identify what kind of citizen that he is. What we're talking about is collective punishment of an ethnic group. Not only that, the Chinese government has been promoting its methods, its technology, it is to other countries, namely Pakistan, Venezuela, Sudan, and others, to utilize to squelch political resentment or prevent a political upheaval in their various societies.
China has a grand scheme to spread its technology and influence around the world. Launched in 2013, it started along the old Silk Road out of Xinjiang and now goes far beyond. It's called the Belt and Road Initiative.
So effectively, what the Belt and Road is China's attempt to, via spending and investment, project its influence all over the world. And we see, massive infrastructure projects going in places like Pakistan, and in Venezuela, and Ecuador, and Bolivia, all over the world, Argentina, in America's backyard, in Africa. Africa's been a huge place. And what the Belt and Road ultimately does is it attempts to kind of create a political leverage for the Chinese spending campaign all over the globe.
Like Xi Jinping's 2018 visit to Senegal, where Chinese contractors had just built a new stadium, arranged loans for a new infrastructure development, and, said the foreign ministry, there would be help maintaining social stability.
As China comes into these countries and provides these loans, what you end up with is Chinese technology being sold and built out by Chinese companies in these countries. We've started to see it already in terms of surveillance systems, not the kind of high-level AI stuff yet, but, lower-level camera-based, manual sort of observation-type things all over. You see it in Cambodia, you see it in Ecuador, you see it in Venezuela. And what they do is they sell a dam, sell some other stuff, and they say, by the way, we can give you these camera systems and for your emergency response. And it'll cost you $300 million, and we'll build a ton of cameras, and we'll build you a kind of, a main center where you have police who can watch these cameras. And that's going in all over the world already.
There are 58 countries that are starting to plug in to China's vision of artificial intelligence, which means effectively that China is in the process of raising a bamboo curtain, one that does not need to, one that is sort of all-encompassing, that has shared resources, shared telecommunications systems, shared infrastructure, shared digital systems, even shared mobile phone technologies. That is quickly going up all around the world to the exclusion of us in the West.
Well, one of the things I worry about the most is that the world is going to split in two, and that there will be a Chinese tech sector and there will be an American tech sector. And countries will effectively get to choose which one they want. It'll be kind of like the Cold War, where you decide, are we going to align with the Soviet Union? Are we going to align with the United States? And the third world gets to choose this or that. And that's not a world that's good for anybody.
The markets in Asia and the U.S. falling sharply on news that a top Chinese executive has been arrested in Canada. Her name is Sabrina Meng. She's the CFO of the Chinese telecom Huawei.
News of the dramatic arrest of an important Huawei executive was ostensibly about the company doing business with Iran. But it seemed to be more about American distrust of the company's technology. From its headquarters in southern China, designed to look like fanciful European capitals, Huawei is the second biggest seller of smartphones and the world leader in building 5G networks, the high-speed backbone for the age of AI. Huawei's CEO, a former officer in the People's Liberation Army, was defiant about the American actions.
There's no way the US can crush us. The world needs Huawei because we are more advanced. If the lights go out in the West, the East will still shine. And if the North goes dark, then there is still the South. America doesn't represent the world.
The U.S. government fears that as Huawei supplies countries around the world with 5G, the Chinese government could have backdoor access to their equipment. Recently, the CEO promised complete transparency into the company's software, but U.S. authorities are not convinced.
Nothing in China exists free and clear of the party state. Those companies can only exist and prosper at the sufferance of the party. And it's made very explicit that when the party needs them, they either have to respond or they will be dethroned. So this is the challenge with a company like Huawei. So Huawei, Ren Zhengfei, the head of Huawei, he can say, well, we're just a private company and we don't take orders from the Communist Party. Well, maybe they haven't yet. But what the Pentagon sees, the National Intelligence Council sees, and what the FBI sees is, well, maybe not yet. But when the call comes, everybody knows what the company's response will be.
The U.S. Commerce Department has recently blacklisted 8 companies for doing business with government agencies in Xinjiang, claiming they are aiding in the repression of the Muslim minority. Among the companies is Megvii. They have strongly objected to the blacklist, saying that it's a misunderstanding of our company and our technology. President Xi has increased his authoritarian grip on the country. In 2018, he had the Chinese constitution changed so that he could be president for life.
If you had asked me 20 years ago what will happen to China, I would have said, well, over time, the Great Firewall will break down. Of course, people will get access to social media, they'll get access to Google. Eventually, it will become a much more democratic place with free expression and lots of Western values. And the last time I checked, that has not happened. In fact, technology has become a tool of control. And as China has gone through this amazing period of growth and wealth and openness in certain ways, there has not been the democratic transformation that I thought. And it may turn out that, in fact, technology is a better tool for authoritarian governments than it is for democratic governments.
To dominate the world in AI, President Xi is depending on Chinese tech to lead the way. While companies like Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent are growing more powerful and competitive, they're also beginning to have difficulty accessing American technology and are racing to develop their own. With a continuing trade war and growing distrust, the long-time argument for engagement between the two countries has been losing ground.
I've seen more and more of my colleagues move from a position when they thought, well, if we just keep engaging China, the lines between the two countries will slowly converge, whether it's in economics, technology, politics. And the transformation where they now think they're diverging. So in other words, the whole idea of engagement is coming under question. And that casts an entirely different light on technology. Because if you're diverging and you're heading into a world of antagonism, conflict possibly, then suddenly technology is something that you don't want to share. You want to sequester to protect your own national interests. And I think the tipping point moment we are at now, which is what is casting the whole question of things like artificial intelligence and technological innovation into a completely different framework, is that if in fact China and the US are in some way fundamentally antagonistic to each other, then we're in a completely different world.
In the age of AI, a new reality is emerging. That with so much accumulated investment and intellectual power, the world is already dominated by just 2 AI superpowers. That's the premise of a new book written by Kai-Fu Lee.
Hi, I'm Kai-Fu.
Dr. Lee.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Chili, nice to meet you.
Yes.
Look at all these dog ears. I love that.
You like that?
But I don't like you didn't buy the book. You borrowed it.
I couldn't find it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And you're coming to my talk?
Of course.
Oh hi.
I did my homework. I'm telling you.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Laurie, can you get this gentleman a book?
In his book and in life, the computer scientist come venture capitalist walks a careful path. Criticism of the Chinese government is avoided, while capitalist success is celebrated.
Electrical engineering.
Sure,
yeah.
send me a resume.
Okay, thanks.
Now, with the rise of the two superpowers, he wants to warn the world of what's coming.
Are you the new leaders?
If we're not the new leaders, we're pretty close. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Never, he writes, has the potential for human flourishing been higher, or the stakes of failure greater.
So if one has to say who's ahead, I would say today, China is quickly catching up. China actually began its big push in AI only 2.5 years ago, when the AlphaGo Lee Sedol match became the Sputnik moment.
He says he believes that the two AI superpowers should lead the way and work together to make AI a force for good. If we do, we may have a chance of getting it right.
If we do a very good job in the next 20 years, AI will be viewed as an age of enlightenment. Our children and their children will see AI as serendipity, that AI is here to liberate us from having to do routine jobs and push us to do what we love and push us to think what it means to be human.
But what if humans mishandle this new power? Kai-Fu Lee understands the stakes. After all, he invested early in Megvii, which is now on the U.S. blacklist. He says he's reduced his stake and doesn't speak for the company. Asked about the government using AI for social control, he chose his words carefully.
AI is a technology that can be used for good and for evil. So how do governments limit themselves in, on the one hand, using this AI technology and the database to maintain a safe environment for its citizens, but not encroach on individuals' rights and privacies? That, I think, is also a tricky issue, I think, for every country. I think every country will be tempted to use AI probably beyond the limits to which that you and I would like the government to use.
Emperor Yao devised the game of Go to teach his son discipline, concentration, and balance. Over 4,000 years later, in the age of AI, those words still resonate with one of its architects.
So AI can be used in many ways that are very beneficial for society. But the current use of AI isn't necessarily aligned with the goals of building a better society, unfortunately. But we could change that.
In 2016, a game of Go gave us a glimpse of the future of artificial intelligence. Since then, it has become clear that we will need a careful strategy to harness this new and awesome power.
I do think that democracy is threatened by the progress of these tools unless we improve our social norms and we increase the collective wisdom at the planet level to deal with that increased power. I'm hoping that my concerns are not founded, but the stakes are so high that I don't think we should take these concerns lightly. I don't think we can play with those possibilities and just race ahead without thinking about the potential outcomes.
Go to pbs.org/frontline for more of the impact of AI on jobs.
I believe about 50% of jobs will be somewhat or extremely threatened by AI in the next 15 years or so.
And a look at the potential for racial bias in this technology.
We've had issues with bias, with discrimination, with poor system design.
Connect to the Frontline community on Facebook and Twitter and watch anytime on the PBS video app or pbs.org/frontline. For more on this and other Frontline programs, visit our website at pbs.org/frontline. To order Frontlines in the Age of AI on DVD, visit Shop PBS or call 1-800-PLAY-PBS. This program is also available on Amazon Prime Video.